Hi, in this video I'm carrying on with assignment 3 for the unit inheritance. So we're looking still at genetic problems. So genetic problems, which is part of assignment 3. And specifically today I am looking at a type of genetic crosses which involve codominance. So codominance. Okay, so in the assignment, these are questions 9 to 11. Okay, so questions 9 to 11 in this assignment. So in case of codominance, unlike the monohybrid crosses which we did in the first video, where one particular trait completely overrides the other one, which is the recessive one. So the dominant totally overpowers the recessive gene, like, say, brown eyes were overriding blue eye gene. So in the case of codominance, the kind of a clue is in the name, so co meaning together, right? So it's not like one gene is completely dominant over the other, but instead both genes contribute equally to the outcome. So I'm going to just write that down. So that means that both genes, or you can call them alleles if you like, so these are genes found within the chromosomes, they're called alleles. So both genes or alleles contribute to the outcome, meaning the phenotype, right? So phenotype. So both genes are gonna show. So the example I'm gonna show you is example of crossing two cows. In your questions, you actually have plants and chickens, but the kind of the logic is going to be pretty much the same. So in my example, I'm gonna take a white cow. I'm gonna cross it with a brown one, brown cow. So if you remember my first video, these are descriptions of these cows, and therefore these are both phenotypes. So phenotypes. And what about their genotypes? So genotypes. So this is how you write genotypes in case of codominance. So my white gene, I'm going to write it as CW. And this is a single gene. So even though it seemingly has got two symbols, but actually it's just a one gene. It's just the way of representing this one gene. So capital C with a W written kind of to above in a superscript. This is going to be white gene, and C with a B is going to be brown color gene. Okay, so these are the letters I'm going to be using. The reason why you don't use just W and B is because instead of using lowercase and uppercase letters, which I can't do in this case because they both contribute equally. So this is just a way, people who deal with genetics, they decide we're going to represent these genes in this particular way, as C with a letter in superscript. So my white cow genotype is going to be CW and another CW, so two genes per genotype as before. And this is crossed with my brown cow, so you can probably guess what genotype that cow is going to have. This is C with a B and C with another B. So again, two genes, right? So not four, don't get confused here. This is just a one symbol for one gene, second symbol for the second gene. The same applies for the brown cow. So the next step, kind of same logic as what we were doing with monohybrid crosses. All I'm going to do is work out gametes. So gametes, so for the white cow, my gametes is going to be CW. I'm going to again separate those symbols out, so that's one type of gamete, and the second gamete is going to be another CW. But I do have to use that it's a colon or semicolon, isn't it? To just separate the two out. And the same kind of logic again with the brown cow, so those gametes are going to be C, B, again separate them out into the second gamete, which is another CB. So next step, as before, is Punnett square. So you do your grid a bit like if you were trying to play noughts and crosses. Right, that's your kind of starting grid. Then you'll have your gametes, so it doesn't really matter which way around it is, male and female. In that case, it doesn't matter, but let's just specify them just for the sake of clarity. Let's say the white cow is going to be male, the brown cow is going to be female, so I'm going to put appropriate symbols in the appropriate parts of the grid. So C, W, CW for 2 male gametes, CB, CB for the 2 female gametes, and then all I'm going to do is just combine the 2 together, right? Because both of them are going to contribute equally, it doesn't really matter in which order you're going to write them. That's pretty much your choice. So I'm going to just because I'm going to start with CW and then write CB, okay? But I could have done it the other way around, so that doesn't really matter. Okay, so here you go. This is going to be our 4, possible outcomes, the 4 possible little baby cows we can have. And so the last step is to work out what the phenotypes are of these cows. So what are the phenotypes of F1? You remember F1 is the first generation. So my white and the brown cow, they were parents. So this is showing you the first generation, or F1. So here where kind of codominance comes to play. So instead of, say, brown being dominant and overpowering white, or white being dominant overpowering brown, they're both going to contribute equally to the outcome, and that's why we call it codominance. So actually those cows are going to be something called roan cows, right? So you'll have 100% roan cows, right? So no whites or no brown, cows in the first generation at all. So you might ask, well, what do these roan cows look like, right? And that's quite easily, you can look it up online. So let me just show you quickly a picture, if I can get in my phone. Right, there you go. Right, so here is a picture of a nice roan cow. So you can see that it's got some brown and some white, so it's a bit like kind of Dalmatian cow, very nice, very pretty. And so there's all sorts of examples here of all these different roan colored cows. Okay, so that's going to be the outcome of that particular cross. Okay, so for the questions in the assignment, your job is going to be looking at a cross, and in this case this is Petunia, so no cows here, but as I said, the same sort of logic. So you started with red and white Petunia, you crossed it in the first generation, and that gave you a stripe Petunia, right? So same sort of logic. So instead of that roan cows, you have this kind of stripes going on. But your job here is to take that question a bit further and cross the first generation with itself, and to see what's going to be happening in the second generation. So I'll kind of leave you to puzzle that out. And once you've done question 9, then the next question, question 10, is actually extremely similar. So again, same logic, but this time you're looking at chickens, so black and white getting crossed, becoming all speckled in the first generation. And again, your job is to then work out what's going to happen in the second generation. So make sure you clearly specify what the ratios are, and not just put the numbers for the ratio, but also say what each number represents, which phenotype each number is. Okay. So then the last question in this assignment to do with codominance is this one, which is question 11. So in this question, you're looking at codominance of blood groups. And in this case, you're looking at group N, group M, and group N, MN, and you're given genotype. So here is the thing which you need to keep kind of aware of, if you like. So when you're using those letters, say double N or double M, these are genotypes. So when you're writing your phenotypes, you need to say something like group M. So this is phenotype, this is genotype, so don't get confused. So then below you have this table where you need to list all your percentage of outcomes, meaning percentage of phenotypes if you do those sort of crosses, okay? And this is sort of just really a straightforward monohybrid cross, just keeping in mind that if you have a situation where you have MN, this is going to be group MN because both genes contribute equally to creating this third group. Okay, so let's do one of these crosses together. Let's pick, I don't know, let's say this one, right? So I've got parent with genotype MM, and I'm crossing this parent with a second person who's M and N. And my job really is very simple: do a quick Punnett square and figure out what the kind of possible outcomes are going to be. So M and M, that's my parent here, and the second one, M and N. And all I'm really doing here is just combining the letters together. Obviously do it carefully, don't rush with it. Okay, and once I've done that, then I can clearly see that I've got half of outcomes being MM and half of outcomes being MN. Now, looking back at my question, I know that genotypes represents this phenotype, group M, and this genotypes represents this phenotype, group MN. So in my final answer for percentage of outcomes for that particular cross, all I'm going to write is that it's 50% group M and 50% group MN. Okay, so that's going to be kind of my answer, which is going to go into the table, so in the table. And you, again, do the same kind of thing with all your other crosses. Okay, so I think I'm going to stop here, and then I'm going to look next at the human blood groups in a bit more detail, which is going to cover multiple alleles. So I'll see you for this video shortly.